New figures from New York City's health department today show nearly 1/3 of all babies born in the city last year were born out of wedlock. As Channel 2's Barbara Nivens reports, the numbers could have a tremendous impact on the future of the city.
Melanie White and her 2 children provide faces for the statistics. At 16, Melanie, unmarried, became pregnant and had a little girl. 4 years later, still unmarried, she gave birth to another.
I was scared to death of birth control. I didn't want my insides to get messed up. I didn't know which one to use, which one would be safe, so I didn't use any at all.
During the past 20 years, the number of children like Melanie's born out of wedlock has tripled. In 1983, according to the New York City Health Department, 37% of the babies born in the city were illegitimate. In central Harlem, 79.9% of all the children born last year were illegitimate. In Morrisania, in the Bronx, 72.2%. In Mott Haven, 68.8%. In Tremont, 68.1%. In Brooklyn's Bedford-Stuyvesant, 65%. And in Fort Greene, 62.8%. An increase in the number of poor people in the city partially accounts for the trend. But the fact that illegitimate children tend to have children born out of wedlock is also a significant factor.
The families at risk, the families living in poverty who began their family careers with an unmarried teenager, are very likely themselves to produce young women who will do the same thing over again.
While there has also been an increase in the number of out-of-wedlock births in affluent areas like Manhattan's East Side, the phenomenon becomes troublesome and costly to taxpayers in poor communities, where mothers and their children are likely to be on welfare and heavily dependent on social service agencies.
It does mean that the extended family sometimes has to get in and help the unwed mother and the child, which puts a drain on the child, the mother, and the family. And of course that means it puts a strain on the entire community.
The statistics indicate that many of those giving birth out of wedlock are teenagers. Belinda Hall had the first of her 3 children when she was 15.
Wanted to do what the rest of my friends did, but I was the one that got caught.
The health department's latest figures highlight a problem that social service agencies have been trying to deal with for some time. Most of the women we talked with today said much the same thing. My children are here now, so there's just no use complaining. Yet if there is to be change, it is the children of these women that politicians, community leaders, and social workers hope to reach. Barbara
You're
Nivens,
watching
Channel 2.
CBS 2. Now, Stephen Clark, Dana Tyler, Ira Joe Fisher, and Warner Wolf. More news in less time, every time.
Good evening. Our top story tonight. No charges will be filed against the cop who shot and killed 16-year-old Kevin Cedeno.
This afternoon, a grand jury found Officer Anthony Pellegrini thought Cedeno was trying to kill him. The jury's decision has outraged Cedeno's family. For the very latest, News 2 reporter Vince Dementri joins us live from Washington Heights. Vince?
Kevin Cedeno's family says this has all been swept very neatly under the rug by the city. Meanwhile, Police Commissioner Howard Safer says the grand jury's decision stands and that there will not be any departmental charges filed against Officer Anthony Pellegrini. Case closed. Manhattan District Attorney Robert Morgenthau says the shooting death of 16-year-old Kevin Cedeno was justified.
Grand jurors, having heard all the evidence, found that Officer Pellegrini shot Kevin Cedeno because he believed that Cedeno was about to use deadly physical force against him.
Led by the Reverend Al Sharpton, the Cedeno family cries of cover-up.
How can they shoot my brother in the back, murder him, and say it's justifiable? It's cold-blooded murder.
The shooting happened in Washington Heights on the morning of April 6th. Cedeno had just left a party when a fight broke out. Someone called 911 for help. The DA released a transcript of that call, in which it says, the operator answers, "What is the problem?" The caller says, "Someone has been shot. A gunshot went off," and again the operator, "Wait a minute, someone is shot or you heard a shot fired?" Again the caller, "I heard a shot fired. There are people screaming." Upon arriving in the melee, Officer Pellegrini from the 33rd Precinct chased Cedeno, who was carrying this machete. Pellegrini shot and killed Cedeno. At first, police said Cedeno was shot in the chest because he was coming at Pellegrini with the machete. Later, an autopsy showed Cedeno was shot in the back. And at the grand jury proceedings, Officer Pellegrini testified that he thought the machete was a shotgun, and Cedeno was about to turn around and fire. Now, Police Commissioner Howard Safer says, in his opinion, this case is closed, but not according to the Reverend Al Sharpton. He will be asking for a federal investigation claiming that Kevin Cedeno's civil rights had been violated. Reporting live from outside the 33rd Precinct in Washington Heights, I'm Vince Demetri, News 2.
We be the kings of our throne. Benny, I'm not that clever. What I'm trying to say is I'm 100%. We be the kings of our throne. Benny, I'm not that clever. What I'm trying to say is I'm 100%.
Yo, there ain't no magic here. Rhymes hang above your head like a chandelier. Usually serve them cold like a can of beer. First they were bold, then they ran in fear. I ain't gassed up, but just for safety don't hold no candles near. I wear a chain made of snake carcass. Decorate my crown with chunks and pieces of the faint-hearted. I line these words and let them march at you like Braveheart did. Rappers throw on wallpaper, but all I see is painted targets. Straight liquor, no vino. They don't wanna fuck with this, but as the French would say, man, that's just libido. One free flow, better than your whole career. Murdered it, but this be manslaughter, so they give us years. Acting like queens, the heads on the currency gone. Ain't fucking with me currently, funny, but don't worry me none. Skill of the tongue, keep it tight like the skin of a drum. And years to come to tell our story like Attila the Hun.
The kings of our throne, the sum of our talent, it's audible gold. The crown has been handed, the pot on the roll. Plotted the banquet, you should have been told. We're more than established, eliminating sellout rappers with their whackness. Left up on the shelves, embarrassing themselves. I'd rather play them Biggie, Big Pun or Big L. With precision we envision what the mission entails. Still driven by your inner vision, miracles prevail. Through the mysticism in the lyricism itself. Plus we flip sales like with digital scales. So put your L's up if you know your health is your wealth. Propel compelling evidence that we ain't settling for nothing else. The lead role in this film, we developed it well. 100% do my stance as well. Some are sold through hell to compose the spell that got you all enchanted cause it's so surreal.
We be the kings of our throne. Benny, I'm not that clever. What I'm trying to say is I'm 100%. We be the kings of our throne. Benny, I'm not that clever. What I'm trying to say is I'm 100%.
Yo, I had him like, yeah, what he said. Trying to hit the reset. Behind 2 or 3 steps in the plot. See the higher ground, trying to reach it. Climb a ladder route, deep end to see sense. Strengthen up your defense. Revelation takes time to sink in. Dedication takes time to imprint to your instinct. Trying to maintain the discipline. Holding my position, now I'm listening again. 100%, not a bit less. Heavy weight on the king's head, that's payback with interest. Invest in what's really working and what's worth it for you. Now there's no time for feeling nervous. Walk across light beams like an acrobat. Landed back in the habitat. He's about the life since they were crowning like kings on their born day. Cream got the best canvas, we laced the portrait.
Wanna reach the level, pay the right cost. I'm like the Jackson 5, you never see me leave this mic off. Infamous on tracks like the Great Train Robbery. You talk about facts and it sounding like comedy. Hung up for my calling like a telesale company. For this conversion I need to change like currency. Made my own destiny, they can't stand us. They're getting thumbs down like slipping out of handcuffs. You the type to lose it all, trying to double up. People follow cash like police do a money truck. Organized like the cartel, stay afloat and sets out. Beats by the hour just like an old church bell. Stand where the rest fell, you should've hung on like a coat bell. Now it's sure I'm like a beach well. It'd be hard for you to match this. Wanna believe, could spell my last name backwards. Tell him bring, tell him bring, tell him bring.
We be the kings of our throne. Benny, I'm not that clever. What I'm trying to say is I'm 100%. We be the kings of our throne. Benny, I'm not that clever. What I'm trying to say is I'm 100%.
Back in the news tonight, New York City is now offering a $10,000 reward for information leading to the killer of a pregnant woman. The cops are handing out leaflets describing the man who murdered Lourdes Gonzalez Serrano. She was repeatedly stabbed Wednesday at her apartment on the Upper East Side. Her young son opened the door and the man barged in. Police believe the same attacker stabbed another woman in the area. She survived and may be able to identify a suspect. The man who's set to hold the one vote needed to restore the death penalty in New York State may be making a stunning turnaround. Republican State Senator James Donovan says that he's having second thoughts about capital punishment. For 24 years, he has supported such legislation, and his vote is considered crucial to overriding Governor Cuomo's veto. But Donovan now says a recent bout with cancer made him reconsider his position. This evening on Channel 2's News at 5, the governor told me that override or not, New York needs is tougher laws.
How can you justify not giving the police, your children, my children, you, me, the protection of a much tougher penalty called life imprisonment without parole.
Well, the governor and Donovan could meet on Monday. A vote on that bill could come.
Teenage girl takes her own life just minutes after her fellow students run to get help. Good evening, everyone. She was only 15 years old, but her friends say she had a lifetime of problems.
And tonight, those who knew and loved Anna Perez want to know why she hung herself inside the school bathroom. News 2 reporter David Diaz joins us live from the East Tremont section of the Bronx with the story. David?
Well, Lisa, I would urge any parents, any teenagers who are watching this newscast to pay particular attention, because this could help save their child or their friend someday. Because you see, the 15-year-old who committed suicide here at Lehman High School today was not a recluse. She was not a loner. She interacted with a lot of students, at least some of whom knew that she was troubled, some of whom had actually heard her say that she wanted to kill herself. It was just around 9:30 this morning that the girl's body was discovered in a third-floor bathroom, hanging from a rope used to play the child's jumping game, Double Dutch. Those who knew Anna Perez all described her as intelligent, friendly, very nice, and troubled.
She had many problems at home.
Whatever those problems were, she apparently was beginning to have problems with alcohol, too.
She was like, oh, you know, dazed out. And I asked her, I was like, what's wrong with you? She was like, oh, no, I'm drunk. So, and then she was only falling on the floor. She couldn't even keep her balance up.
A school official told me the 15-year-old had been disciplined a couple of times, but that there was no indication of anything pointing to suicide. But a classmate who knew Anna from junior high school was blaming herself this morning for not acting on what she knew.
She told me that, you know, she felt like killing herself, and I didn't think she was serious about it. So I started crying hysterical later because I blamed it all on myself.
And two other students may have actually been in a position to prevent the suicide.
There was a couple of girls that were in the bathroom, and they didn't think that she was going to do it, and they were saying that you weren't going to do it. And then when they saw that she was doing it, they all ran out and got the guards, and by that time it was too late.
Perhaps it is a sign of the times, but many students just shrugged off the fact that a classmate had suddenly taken her life.
They say somebody killed themselves, they be like, oh, she just killed herself, something normal. That's because of all the violence that goes on around the school.
Nevertheless, the reality of what happened had a sobering effect on many others.
It's sad. I don't know, but it's bad, and I'm taking it really bad. I didn't know her very well, but it's kind of sad to find out what life does to you.
In fact, what life had done in just the very short time of 15 years in this life, a mixture of troubles at home and alcohol abuse, bad signs, adding up in this case to a tragedy. We're live in the Bronx. I'm David Diaz, News 2 at 6.
David, thank you. Another police shooting involving the city's controversial street crime unit under investigation tonight. Shots rang out early this morning in the Morris Heights section of the Bronx. 16-year-old Dante Johnson wounded in the shoulder. He's in critical condition at Lincoln Hospital at this hour. Johnson was one of a group of teens chased from the front of this deli by street crime officers. A witness describes what happened when police caught up with Johnson.
I seen the police side by side with this kid, and the police grabbed him by his jacket while they was inside the car, and I heard a loud bang and the kid dropped.
Less than an hour ago, News 2 learned Johnson was no longer under arrest. He had been guarded as a suspect.
Well, the city's police department is in the hot seat tonight. They're being probed for its treatment of minorities. News 2 reporter Marcia Kramer is live in Times Square. She has more on how the feds question the NYPD's stop and frisk practices. Marcia?
Well, Lisa, the hearings were like a tale of two cities. The mayor said that New York City police officers are among the most restrained in the nation, but community leaders say they discriminate. And audience hostility had the mayor on edge.
I would ask, Madam Chair Lady, could everybody here conduct themselves in a responsible and respectful way? I will, and I think I'm entitled and you're entitled to that.
Mayor Giuliani didn't like the undercurrent of audience disapproval that his police policies generated as the Federal Civil Rights Commission began probing NYPD treatment of minorities. But he liked even less the panel's disclosure that its own research turned up the fact that the overwhelming number of people stopped and frisked by city police, nearly 80%, are never charged with anything. The panel's counsel, Edward Hales, gave voice to community concerns.
Some 45,000 stops, with in 35,000 of those not resulting in an arrest, which has caused some residents to suggest that they're being stopped for WWJD WWB or WWL, walking while black or walking while Latino. Right.
Audience members waited for an explanation.
The stops that the New York City Police Department makes are largely driven by the victim's description.
Chairwoman Mary Frances Berry asked whether better knowledge of the community might help cops zero in on potential targets rather than, as she put it, seeking someone with kinky hair.
If somebody described that they were attacked by a 6'3" Caucasian, we're not going to go out and look for an African American.
That drove the activists nuts.
Because the victims identified them as black. That is the closest I've ever heard to a public policy of racial profiling.
Now, Reverend Sharpton and others want the panel to appoint a federal monitor to oversee the NYPD. But meanwhile, these hearings are expected to go on well into the night. Hundreds of people are expected to come down and tell of their personal encounters with cops, and the chairlady says she won't close up shop until the last voice has been heard. We're live in Midtown. I'm Marcia Kramer, News 2 at 6.
Breathing life back into a rundown section of Brooklyn. And the restoration of Bedford-Stuyvesant recently hit a special watermark. Channel 2's J.J. Gonzalez was on hand for the occasion.
The ribbon cutting on McDonough Street in Brooklyn's Bed-Stuy section hailed the completion of a 4-year effort by the owners of 3 historic brownstones to save their properties.
Come on, 1, 2, 3. I'm proud. I'm proud of my brownstone house because I couldn't afford to do it. I don't have words to express the gratitude.
The facades of the 3 brownstones were saved by the Landmarks Preservation Commission, who stepped in with cash grants for the work. How much is this project costing?
$60,000 for the 3 buildings.
Okay, the money's coming from?
$30,000 from the city and $30,000 from the state through the federal government.
Jim and Alice Barnes bought their brownstone 3 years ago, paid $17,000 for the dilapidated hulk.
We had to start from scratch. You know, the new plumbing.
So you were pouring a lot of money into it.
Oh, yes, yes. In fact, it was a little more than we had anticipated.
The restoration on McDonough Street is just a small part of a vast restoration that's been going on in Bed-Stuy for 17 years. The restoration began after the then Senator, Bobby Kennedy, visited the riot-torn area in 1964. Violence had broken out after an off-duty police officer shot and killed a 15-year-old boy. The area was left a shambles. Kennedy's visit gave rise to the first restoration corporation in the United States. Much work has been done, many buildings restored or rebuilt with government and private funds. Now they're looking for more businesses to come in.
Currently, we're looking at a joint venture with Wendy's Corporation to bring a Wendy's into the community. And what this does, as a supermarket does, the supermarket created about 150 jobs. Now, if we can bring in Wendy's, it'll create about another 50 to 60 jobs.
The major stumbling block to full restoration is the lack of a skilled labor force in the community.
What we're doing to address that particular problem is we have a number of programs through our TAP Center and through some of our youth employment programs to develop the skills and to provide training and to get people ready for the job market.
Many middle-class professionals are moving back, like Jack Barnes.
Everybody has a vested interest in the properties here, and it's a very, very good neighborhood.
It's hoped more of that enthusiasm and pride will keep the Bed-Stuy Renaissance going full steam ahead. J.J. Gonzalez, Channel 2 News.
New York's war on drugs is breaking a vicious cycle. Junkies who steal to get a fix and steal again. Many addicts seek help in drug treatment programs, but lately fewer and fewer of them are finding it. As Jane Mitchell reports now, part of the problem is system overload.
James DeSantis is a junkie. From a cell at Rikers Island, he told us he's been arrested a half a dozen times. He says the last time he finished doing time, he decided to kick heroin. He says he tried to get into a drug treatment center, but was told he'd have to wait 2 weeks.
In that 2-week period of waiting to get into the program, I went out and did another burglary and ended up back in jail.
His story is one of thousands like it, and it touches all of us because junkies are committing much of the crime that is hurting all of us.
What is happening to New York City and the rest of the country is that more than 50% of all of the acts of crime, property crimes, occur as a result of drug addiction drug addicts going out, stealing and burglarizing and robbing in order to supply their habit.
New York State estimates there are almost 30,000 more heroin addicts today than 4 years ago. Cocaine use is way up. New York City cops are making addicts' lives tougher than ever with more drug crackdowns like Operation Pressure Point. Those police raids are pushing many low-level pushers and their customers off their favorite street corner. That's pushed more addicts to seek help. All of this has drug treatment centers backlogged. At least 1,500 addicts are on the official waiting list, not including hundreds who just walk out when they're told they have to wait.
I don't want to say that we want to encourage the addict to commit crimes, but in a sense, basically, that's what we're telling them, because if someone comes to our doors and we can't service them, then we're basically putting that individual back out into the streets.
One of those who said he did not get help in time, 36-year-old Walter Sullivan. We visited Sullivan in Rikers Island as he was waiting for his burglary trial. Sullivan says he was a building superintendent supporting his own dope habit when he lost his job. He says he tried to get treatment but was told he'd have to wait 30 days and could not handle it.
30 days it's a lifetime. It's devastating because you need help then. You don't need help 30 days from now. 30 days from now, with the habit, you could be done, maybe hurt someone. See, heroin is a physical thing. It's not just a mental thing. I mean, you physically get sick.
We're picking these people off the street. We're bringing them into a courtroom, maybe into a prison. They're there for a very brief period of time, but their addiction is not really being dealt with.
Basically, there are two ways to treat junkies now. Get them off drugs completely or switch them to another drug, methadone. Methadone is what doctors give their patients at this Manhattan clinic. It's a treatment that can go on for years. It keeps the addict from stealing, and on this drug, they can function and work. Cost per addict? Just over $2,000 a year. This looks more like a summer camp, but it's a place where addicts try to kick drugs entirely. Here at the foot of the Catskills, addicts live, work, and get intensive counseling.
You didn't have no friends. You had people you got high with.
Yeah, these are people, though, when you're out there, you think they're your friends because you're so high and out of it most of the time. You think these people are your friends.
The hope is after a year, they will walk out with their addiction behind them. This program costs just over $8,000 a year per client, most of it government money. Counselors here say New York State's clinics need more money.
When you consider over 1 million users in New York State and only 40,000 odd in treatment, a grossly inadequate system. And that translates only to the fact that there are no dollars to open up new slots.
Others say throwing money at the problem won't solve it. A lot of addicts who get out of treatment drift right back to their old drug haunts and drug dealings, like this one in broad daylight on the Lower East Side. That often lands them right back in jail. One federal study in the 1970s showed almost half of the addicts it surveyed spent time in jail within 3 years of leaving treatment. So a lot of professionals say what's really needed is a new approach. Example, right now, junkies sent to Rikers Island get methadone for a week so they don't have to go through painful withdrawals in a jail cell. Doctors here say, why not start the motivated prisoners in special long-term treatment while they're still right here in jail?
If it were possible to find the right population of people who would benefit from that program, and not everybody would, but some would, they could potentially be started on methadone maintenance while in jail and then discharged to a methadone maintenance program in the community.
Others, like U.S. Senator Al D'Amato and Mayor Koch, say, in the end, there are 3 basic ways to attack the drug problem. Education to prevent people from getting hooked, treatment of those who are hooked, and cutting off the drug supply with boats, guns, and planes.
I believe that having a defense against drugs that are coming into this country is as important and is an integral part of our national defense.
It is, in a way, a war. And right now, we're losing it. Do you think any agency or any aspect of government is failing, is not doing its share?
Everybody. Everybody's failing. I would say the government, they need a lot more programs because it's not only in one neighborhood, it's in all the neighborhoods. If you don't help now, you're going to pay now or you're going to pay later.
At any given time, politicians in the state legislature and in Congress are working on ways to raise more money and create new programs to fight drugs. Even those politicians will tell you so far the government has not hit on the right combination of efforts. Until it does, all of us will keep paying for the habits of junkies. Jane Mitchell,
Washington officials have taken a bite out of Mike Tyson's wallet. He has been suspended and fined
for biting off a chunk of Evander Holyfield's ear in Saturday night's big fight. News 2 sports reporter Gary Apple tells you how much Tyson will have to pay for that heavyweight chomp.
I can't understand it. I'm sure there will be suspensions and bans galore.
Before any comments were made today, the Nevada State Boxing Commission rewatched the horror that unfolded in the ring at the MGM Grand Hotel on Saturday night.
Can't believe what I'm seeing.
Then they made the recommendation, temporarily suspending Tyson from boxing and withholding his $30 million purse.
I apologize to the world.
Just yesterday, Tyson apologized for his biting actions and insisted he will not fight any sanctions the commission levels upon him.
I will instruct my managers and promoters to waive any time restrictions so that the penalty can begin immediately.
Today, Tyson's attorney stayed the course.
And as Mr. Tyson indicated in his press conference yesterday, it is his desire to go forward with this matter as expeditiously as possible.
Tyson was not in attendance at the meeting, but his trainer, Richie Giacchetti, was, and at times seemed amused. A far different reaction from the commissioners, who voted unanimously on the sanctions.
Any more discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Sources are now saying that Tyson will get at least a one-year suspension and have $3 million of his purse taken away. We're live in the newsroom. I'm Gary Apple, News 2.
Now, Mike Tyson's not alone when it comes to getting an earful during a fight. A Stanford man is behind bars. He did the exact same thing 9 days ago. Jose Quiroa and his 17-year-old nephew were walking home from a restaurant. The two started arguing over how much Quiroa had been drinking. Police say Quiroa jumped his nephew, bit off part of his ear, then spit it out on the sidewalk.
Detectives believe they recovered that piece of flesh on Thursday. When they were brought to the area, they found something which they think is the ear, and it's being sent out for confirmation. It's being sent out to the lab.
So Jose Quiroa remains jailed tonight on $50,000.
In case you missed it, the Nevada State Athletic Commission today suspended Mike Tyson and withheld his $30 million purse pending a decision Tuesday. Hey, what's to decide, folks? What's the deal? Tyson committed fraud by not performing and cheating the public, who paid $50 a shot, and the $16,000 who showed up. Not only should Tyson's entire purse be distributed to charity, and Tyson suspended a minimum of 2 years, pay-per-view should refund half of the $50 to all its customers, because only one of the fighters fought. And as far as Tyson's apology that he snapped, come on, maybe you bite once, but not twice. That's premeditated.
The winner of New York's Cola Wars may not be decided by taste, but rather by tactics. News 2 reporter Julie Chen shows you how Pepsi is swallowing up Coke's business with a good old-fashioned do-it-yourself approach.
Pioneer Supermarket in the Bronx is one of about 7,000 mom-and-pop owned stores in New York that stock both Pepsi and Coke. But the rival colas are delivered to these stores in very different ways, and that is what analysts say is affecting sales.
Here's the problem. When the Coca-Cola company delivers their product to their stores, it'll often sit in a back room or even in back of the store for many hours before it makes it to the shelves.
Pepsi uses independent drivers who both deliver and stock the shelves. In return, they get a cut of the sales. This makes the drivers take pride in what they do.
Help sales, make it look nice. People look at it, they want to buy it.
Coke has company drivers who deliver to stores and separate company employees who then come out to physically stock the shelves. This system kicked in last year when Coke spent $200 million buying out its independent drivers in New York.
And since then, we have a problem with the service.
The problem has affected Coke's profits. Since the company bought back the New York routes, sales have been down 2%.
What's Coke's problem here?
Take a look at the shelf. You can see it.
Why Pepsi?
Tastes better than Coke. I don't like Coke. It tastes nasty.
In the Bronx, Julie Chen.
And tonight, police are searching for the killers of a subway token booth clerk shot to death during a push-in robbery. Police say it happened last night at the Euclid Avenue station in East New York. The clerk, 40-year-old Andre Barreto, had just opened the door to let a co-worker into the booth, but two robbers were lurking nearby. One pushed his way into the booth, the other opened fire. Police say the robbers got away with $350.
This Thanksgiving has been a hard-working holiday for many people in our area. No turkey, no time off, but that doesn't mean they're complaining. As Channel 2's Pat Battle reports, some of those toiling away today found ways to make the holiday a little brighter.
There were a lot of people thankful that they didn't have to work today. They could go shopping like these ladies did. But of course, somebody had to mind the store, and here at the New York Look, they were making the best of it. I see you're making the best of a bad situation, though.
Yeah, well, we're offering champagne to customers.
Compared to having done nothing, if we were closed, it's been incredible.
Business has been incredible.
Absolutely, yeah.
And what about all those families who ate their turkey dinners out, courtesy of some of New York's fine restaurants like Wilson's here on the Upper West Side? Somebody had to do the cooking, right? You cook all this food and you don't get a chance to go home and enjoy dinner with your own family.
They came in to eat tonight.
Oh, they came here?
Right.
Oh, well, does that work, huh?
Yeah, that works.
I'm having a wonderful Thanksgiving. I mean, as far as other people are concerned, I mean, I'm working, but I'm making other people happy on Thanksgiving, and that's the important thing.
A lot of people got where they were going, courtesy of all those taxi and bus drivers who put in a full day's work today. So do you feel better knowing that you're taking them to see their families?
Yeah, that consoles me a little bit.
But not enough.
Not much.
Bottom line, though, most people we found working in New York today really were complaining.
I traded it all for Christmas and New Year's, so that way I don't have to work those 2 holidays. So I'll work today. I don't mind.
I would be unhappy if I wasn't working.
Really? You'd rather be working on Thanksgiving?
At least I have a job, right?
Yeah, that's one thing to be thankful for today, isn't it?
It is, certainly is.
And, of course, if I wasn't working today, who'd be here to bring you the stories of the rest of those folks who are stuck working on Thanksgiving Day?
What is this, a solo act?
Like Rick and Manny here, cameraman and sound technicians extraordinaire. I'm Pat Battle for Channel 2 News, and from all of us, happy
families
Thanksgiving.
are, of course, counting their blessings on this Thanksgiving night.
But unfortunately, many others are just hanging on to hope that one day they, too, will have something to be thankful for. Channel 2's Mike Taibbi has their story.
The Thanksgiving dinner guests at the Children's Aid Society's Millbank Center in Harlem all live in buildings across 118th Street. 2 of the buildings, city-owned buildings, are frankly horrible.
This breaks your heart.
Plumbing that rarely works, walls and ceilings devoid of plaster, little heat, and sometimes no heat at all. Martha Barber, an amputee, tells me and producer Rose Arce that never missing a rent payment has gained her almost nothing in the way of repairs to her crumbling apartment.
Every time I ask them, they ignore me.
What do they say to you?
They say they gonna send somebody out, but they never do.
For Elaine Gunzel and her 3 children, including 7-year-old Annie, it's a hole of an apartment lit by a bare bulb.
I just had rats the other day.
Yeah.
My cat caught me. I got a 2-year-old, a 7-year-old, and a 9-year-old, and rats in all the holes.
But hope has been brought into even these apartments by the Children's Aid Society, a private agency which has been able to prod the city into corrective action after years of neglect.
Are the boilers working? Are there running water? Are there lead that the apartments need painting, plastering?
Caseworker Ann Ham inventories every specific need. For example, the eviction threat faced by Elaine and her kids because they, like many of their neighbors, were squatters. Now they're not. So do you think that this Thanksgiving might be a better one for you than...
Oh, yeah, because I have my own apartment now. I'm a legal tenant.
And some legal tenants, with the help of the agency and Ann Ham, have been moved into the clean and modern Tier 2 housing a few doors down the street. For Patricia Vincent, the mother of 7, the old days are just a bad memory that's fading fast.
We tried for housing. We tried for, like, other things, HPD. We said, is we ever going to move? And then that's when we met Miss Hams.
So it was a modest dinner today, but an important one for families short on hope. It means that 7-year-old Annie might lose that haunted look in her eyes. It means 7-month-old Christina can sleep peacefully beneath a window looking out on a hopeful life from the safety of a warm, clean, well-lighted home. In Harlem, Mike Taibbi, Channel 2 News.
Gunfire inside a Brooklyn police precinct with 2 officers wounded and a suspect shot dead. Plus troubling questions following doomsday in Waco.
This is Channel 2 News at 11.
Good evening, everyone. Here's what's happening at this hour. 2 New York City police officers are fighting for the fight of their lives after gunfire exploded inside their station house.
It happened a few hours ago at the 70th precinct in Brooklyn. Police say a suspect grabbed an officer's gun and then opened fire. Our team coverage begins with Channel 2's Pat Battle at the 70th precinct. Pat?
Well, Michelle, just about an hour ago, police removed the body of 27-year-old Danny Cook from inside the 70th precinct. Police say that after shooting those 2 officers, he apparently turned the gun on himself and fired a shot into his head with that .38 caliber police-issue revolver. Now, Cook had been arrested about 1:30 this afternoon in a drug sweep at Lenox and Flatbush Avenue. He'd been processed and was about to be transported to Central Booking when he asked to go to the bathroom. And, of course, no one could have anticipated what happened next.
The prisoner identified as Danny Cook. He's a male, 27 years of age, fired 6 times, striking one of the officers, police officer Robert Noblin, we believe 2 times in the neck and torso. Another officer, police officer Mary Claire, and the last name Capatasto, was shot 2 times in the left head, and right wrist, and right arm.
Police say that all of the bullets were fired from Officer Robert Noblin's gun, rested away from him as he stood in the bathroom with the suspect. Noblin had reportedly removed one handcuff so that Cook could go to the bathroom. He grabbed the gun and started shooting. Officer Capatasto heard the shots and responded unarmed. She was shot as she entered the room. Is it standard operating procedure for an officer to take his gun with him when he's accompanying a suspect who is not in handcuffs?
That's correct, yes. There's no problem there. We're not looking at those details right now. We're looking at the seriousness of the injury to the officers, and we're concerned about their health at this point.
Police say that Danny Cook was a familiar face in the 70th precinct with a long arrest record. In fact, he was on parole for a drug conviction when the shooting happened today. He would have been on parole till 1995.
Danny Cook's, the perpetrator, has been arrested on at least 5 previous occasions, 3 times for robbery, once for assault, and once for burglary.
Meanwhile, 5 police officers and 2 civilians were hurt this afternoon as those cops responded to the shooting at the 70th precinct. They were all taken to Brookdale Hospital. The shooting inside the 70th stunned people who live and work nearby.
I was shocked. I was nervous. I couldn't believe it's in a precinct something like this happened.
I mean, if you're not safe in there,
where else we're going to be safe?
Now, of course, police officers here at the 70th were just as stunned and shocked by what happened today. That bathroom inside the precinct is about 70 feet down the hallway from the central desk area here. The shooting happened so quickly, though, police say they're still not sure whether any of the officers inside the precinct were able to return fire. Now, again, those 2 police officers who were shot were taken to Kings County Hospital. That's where my colleague is standing by now. Carol Iavana, let's go to you for more details on that.
All right, Pat, we have just heard moments ago that Officer Robert Noblin has come out of surgery. He's out of surgery now in stable but critical condition, and he still has the 2 bullets that were in him when he went into surgery. They're still in his body. Officer Capatasto is still in surgery at this hour and remains in critical condition. 29-year-old Officer Mary Capatasto is assigned to the Special Narcotics Enforcement Unit of the 70th Precinct. She is a 6-year veteran of the force. She was not carrying a gun at the time of the incident because she had just finished fingerprinting the suspect, and police procedure does not require her to carry one. She's not the only Capatasto on the police force. Her husband, Detective Paul Capatasto, is at her side.
He was strong, concerned, of course, knows that he can, at this juncture, do nothing but wait. The commissioner and I offered whatever assistance we might at this point. He said he was all right for the moment, had support, family, friends.
25-year-old Officer Robert Noblin is a 4-year veteran of the force. His parents are also here at the hospital. He is the one who brought the suspect into the bathroom. Police Commissioner Kelly says at that time 1 handcuff was released, but that's part of the normal procedure. However, he says a full investigation as to what happened is underway.
We are in the very preliminary stages of the investigation, so we will conduct a full-blown investigation of this incident.
Of course, both officers remain here at Kings County Hospital. There is no prognosis on either one of them right now. As we said earlier, Robert Noblin just came out of surgery with the 2 bullets still in him. The other officer remains in surgery at this hour. I'm Carol Iavana reporting live from Kings County Hospital, and now back to the studio.
All right. Thank you, Carol.
Tonight, a new report is raising serious questions about the response time of New York City's emergency service system. The report says it takes EMS more than 15 minutes to respond to about 12% of the most life-threatening calls. So the study suggests splitting up the usual 2-person paramedic teams and recommends letting dispatchers decide which calls are high priority. If a call is determined to be low priority, people could be told they'll have to wait.
I would feel very upset not being able to get them an ambulance or telling them that, we don't feel your call is a true emergency.
Once you've decided people can wait, you've decided people will die.
The Health and Hospitals Corporation, which runs EMS, says some of the recommendations could be useful while others may be inappropriate.
Thieves caught stealing from a dead man.
Good evening. The worst part is the accused thieves are city workers.
Police say the men were sent over to remove the body, then saw an opportunity and went after it. Tonight, the dead man's family is horrified someone would try to steal from him. News 2 reporter Paul Floranges has the latest live from Kings County Hospital in Crown Heights. Paul?
Dana, it is truly an unthinkable crime, stealing from the dead. But tonight, that's exactly what 2 morgue workers assigned here to Kings County Hospital are charged with. Still mourning from his loss, Matthew Patel reluctantly spoke to News 2 about what police say morgue attendants did while preparing to remove his dead brother Gregory's body from the family's East 28th Street home.
It's crude, and I don't believe they did it, but I didn't see it, and we'll wait and see. That's the least of my problems.
According to police, Brooklyn morgue attendants Edward Rodriguez and Ruben Berrio stole small items from Patel's apartment, items they could stow away with his body. Their plot foiled by a police officer from the 61st Precinct, because as is procedure, a police officer was assigned to guard Patel's unattended body until the medical examiner could remove it. When the 2 attendants arrived here, they allegedly asked the officer guarding Patel's body to take some paperwork to their van. When she returned downstairs, she noticed a nylon bag inside the body bag with Patel. When she asked them to remove it, she quickly realized it contained some of the dead man's belongings. A portable tape player, headphones, fanny pack, flashlight, and $3 were inside the bag. It's a crime Patel's surviving brother finds hard to believe.
Police officer saw this, yeah. I don't know. I didn't see anything myself, but the police officer.
News of the crime horrified family friend Angelo Young.
I can't believe that.
Pretty low?
Very low. That's the lowest thing I ever heard in my life.
Neighbor Janet Musamichi agrees. It's like you can't even die in New York in peace.
Exactly. You're not allowed. And if you do, they steal from you, alive or dead.
Matthew Patel told me tonight he was more concerned about laying his brother to rest than passing judgment. We contacted the medical examiner's office for a comment, but got a flat no comment. Ruben Berrios, a 22-year veteran of the office, and Edward Rodriguez stand charged tonight with petty larceny and official misconduct. Reporting live from Kings County Hospital, Paul Floranges, News 2.
Paul, thank you. Tonight, 5 police officers from Orange are indicted on civil rights charges in a suspect's death. The man was wrongly accused of killing a cop, Officer Joyce Carnegie. She was gunned down last year as she approached a robbery suspect. 27-year-old Earl Faison was arrested 3 days later. Police thought he looked like this sketch of the suspect. The indictment says the officers beat, robbed, and pepper sprayed Faison, all while he was handcuffed. Tonight, Faison's parents talked about the indictments.
We're just happy to see, that things are moving up, and we just have to be patient a little while longer, because justice will prevail.
I'm glad something is finally coming of the situation. I understand that it was a hard and tough situation from the beginning under the circumstances.
Earl Faison died less than an hour after police took him into custody. Another suspect later confessed to killing Officer Carnegie. Francisco Rosario has become the 6th New York City police officer to either be convicted or plead guilty in the Abner Louima torture case. Rosario was found guilty of lying to investigators. Prosecutors say he lied about the torture of Louima in a station.
Measured in explosive power, they were not that large, but bombs going off in an urban area are better measured in terror than in firepower. 2 bombs went off early today in Manhattan. Dave Monsees reports.
First bomb, a narrow 6-inch pipe packed with explosives, detonates in front of Con Ed's headquarters on 14th Street. One employee taken to the hospital, but his injuries weren't serious enough to keep him there.
Now, less than 2 hours after the bomb went off, repair crews were already blocking off the one window here at the Con Ed headquarters that was blown away. The only other evidence left, apparently the place where the bomb was put. This is the remains of a trash can that was on the sidewalk here at 14th and Irving Place.
Second bomb, 20th Street between 2nd and 3rd Avenues. Right behind the 13th precinct, a police car has its gas tank ruptured by yet another pipe packed with explosives. Police say had the car been occupied and had the gas ignited, neither the car nor its occupant would have survived. Just a few minutes later, Ken Clark, who was working the overnight shift at United Press International, got a phone call.
Man with a fairly heavy Puerto Rican accent asked for the night desk. Well, as you can see, they're all night desks, so I asked him what it was that he wanted. And there was a pause, and he said, listen very carefully, this is the FALN, we're responsible for the bombs. I tried to hold him, but he hung up. seemed very nervous, very eager to get off the phone.
The FALN, the Puerto Rican terrorist group that's claimed responsibility for the Francis Tavern bombings and dozens of others. But this time, the group's pattern shifted, if in fact it was the FALN at all. Clark got the call after the bombings. Other times, calls to the press have come just before any explosions. And there's more. Inspector Robert Howe is head of the arson explosion squad.
This is outside the normal pattern of the FALN with 32 bombs that were placed in New York City over the years. The usual method of operation was a timing device with several sticks of dynamite. However, there's also the possibility that the pattern has changed.
Now, here at the Con Ed headquarters on 14th Street, you can see that work crews are just starting now to replace that one window that was destroyed last night in the bombing. And late this afternoon, a new development. Not only the phone call to the UPI, but later this afternoon, a letter was received claiming to be from the FALN that read in part there was a number of demands made in terms of what's going on in Puerto Rico. A number of sayings inside the letter like free Puerto Rico, free all political prisoners, stop grand jury abuse. Now, what the police department has to do is to decide whether or not this is legitimate or whether their suspicions are. In either event, they're going to have an awful lot of work for them ahead of them in the next couple of days, Jim.
Most of us are happy to live in the United States, but a Cuban-born woman says that she'll be happy to die here as an American citizen. J.J. Gonzalez has her story.
Her name is Zenobia de las Nieves Rios, and this morning was one of the happiest days of her 60 years. She was on her way to become an American citizen. Zenobia came to the United States from Cuba in 1969, accompanied by her husband, Fernando. Their 2 sons stayed behind. And it's unlikely that they will ever see their mother again, for despite her lust for living, Zenobia is terminally ill with cancer. It doesn't dampen her joy. We were not allowed to film the swearing-in ceremony, but afterwards I asked her in Spanish why it was her wish to die as an American citizen. Because I like the system here. I'm not going anywhere else, and I prefer to live and die in this democracy.
Lo menos que puedo hacer es estar dentro de la democracia y las leyes que es el país.
¿Y estás contenta con eso?
Más feliz que nunca.
I'm happier than ever before. I know that if I want to get up in the morning or to stay in bed, I can do these things, or whatever I want to do within the laws of this country. And I want to do them within the time I have left because of this illness. But I'm so happy today. If I were to die in this chair right now, instead of in a bed, better it should happen here now. I would be so happy. It would be the greatest thing in my life. Justice Brandeis once said, the most important office in this land is that of private citizen. That office was admirably filled this morning by Zenobia de las Nieves Rios, citizen. J.J. Gonzalez, Channel 2 News.
Joanne Little was freed on bail today from Rikers Island. That's a long way from North Carolina. That's where she became a national figure, acquitted in the slaying of a white jailer who allegedly abused her sexually. But she's remained in jail there on a breaking and entering charge until her recent escape. Bill Greenwood reports on her release today.
Little was escorted out of Rikers by her attorney, William Kunstler. She'd been held here since December 9th on a North Carolina fugitive warrant and is now fighting a request for her extradition. She talked about that fight at an earlier news conference in a prison auditorium.
I've been given another chance to be released out into the street to prove to the people and to the public that just because you come to prison or just because you commit a crime, you're still a human being, have a job, build a family, get married, and never return to the prison system again.
Her temporary freedom cost $51,000 in cash bail money. As for living money, the fugitive hopes to find a job as a dental assistant while lawyers fight her case.
As soon as we leave here, Joanne is going with us. We have several job interviews for her. We hope that she will be placed in New York State and working by Monday of next week.
Little said she was treated well here at Rikers Island, said it was more like a Holiday Inn than a prison. And she said she still fears for her life if returned to North Carolina.
When I said that I felt that I would rather die than go back to North Carolina, I felt that from deep within, because when you're stripped of your dignity, your pride, your womanhood, and everything. So now it's come to the point where I had to do something, and I chose to escape. And rather than go back to North Carolina and be harassed anymore, I'd rather die and just, you know, be
A
at
Manhattan
peace
church worker is suing New York officials because she was arrested in Times Square for prostitution. But though her case is a recent issue, goes back to 2 years ago when an anti-loitering law was passed. Chris Borgen reports.
It is a stiff anti-loitering law, and from the beginning, its critics complained that state lawmakers passed it to clean up the Times Square area in time for the 1976 Democratic National Convention held in Madison Square Garden during August of that year. The chief complaint is that the statute gives police too much discretion in deciding just who is a prostitute open to arrest on charges of public solicitation. The law's opponents claim that the police are incapable of making accurate snap judgments and therefore make many bad arrests.
Their operative notion is that any woman out on the wrong street at the wrong time must be a prostitute, and they therefore go about arresting all women on certain streets at certain times without the slightest evidence that they are doing anything that violates the law.
Today, Glasser and other critics cited the latest complaint filed by 41-year-old Arlene Carmen, a minister and urban missionary from Manhattan's Judson Memorial Church. She says she was arrested last January 8th while preaching to a group of prostitutes on 8th Avenue, getting marching orders from 3 men in plain clothes.
We're going to march single file across 8th Avenue, and if anybody tries to run away or gets out of line or does anything, I'm going to crack their head open. Nobody ever told me that I was arrested, and nobody ever told me what I was arrested for.
I immediately went to the precinct house and told the officer who she was, and he didn't believe me. So he said she was there with the rest of them and she was soliciting, and I said, "You're wrong. She was not soliciting. She works for the church. And she's with a project that we have with the prostitutes on 8th Avenue. He still didn't believe me. I said to him, "How many 40-year-old hookers do you take in every night?"
Well, Mrs. Carmen is suing Governor Carey, Mayor Koch, Manhattan District Attorney Robert Morgenthau, and several other high law enforcement officials for some $150,000 in punitive damages. She is also asking the federal courts to overturn that controversial anti-loitering law. Now, for its part, police refused comment, saying this case is still in litigation. But, they say, as regarding that anti-loitering law, the police department is mandated to enforce the law as it is written, and they intend to do just that. Yes.
A Washington man rammed his car into the northeast gate of the White House last night. The Secret Service says that the man, identified as Robert Boyd, gave no explanation for his act. He's charged with destroying government property. The new, stronger gates were installed after a man crashed his truck into the old ones in 1974. Roland?
Well, the FBI in Washington has arrested a middle-level employee of the United States Information Agency and a Vietnamese national and charged the two with spying for the communist government of Vietnam. The suspects are USIA's Ronald Humphrey, a 42-year-old information officer, and Trong Deng Hong, a Stanford-educated aide at Washington's Animal Health Institute. A major new plank in the anti-smoking campaign was unveiled today by the National Commission on Smoking and Public Policy. This one uses the views of the people themselves. Some 300 citizens gave testimony last year. Health and Science Editor Charles Crawford has more on the report.
Each of us has a right to choose to influence the way that we may become ill or die.
A national dilemma: cigarette smoking or the health of Americans. The 150-page report to the American Cancer Society makes some of the strongest and far-reaching anti-smoking recommendations since the first Surgeon General's warning more than 20 years ago. Recommendations aimed at accomplishing 3 major objectives:
Reducing to a minimum the number of cigarette smokers, reducing the risk of disease for those who smoke and are unable to quit, and reducing the exposure of non-smokers, particularly those sensitive to cigarette smoke, to the smoke of others and to side-stream smoke.
Key proposals by the Commission include eliminating over the next 10 years federal price supports for tobacco growers, federal and private funding of a mass media anti-smoking campaign, a federal advertising ban on high tar and nicotine cigarettes, laws to prohibit smoking in most public places, and the separation of smokers from non-smokers in restaurants, trains, and buses. A total ban of smoking in all public schools, along with tough anti-smoking rules for both government and private hospitals and health clinics. However, the commission stopped short of calling for a total prohibition on cigarette smoking.
Prohibitions and bans do not work. They cannot be enforced. They lead to bootlegging situations. They encourage organized crime. And the past history of the country is that prohibitions and bans are not effective.
But the broad-reaching recommendations by the National Commission on Smoking are in for some stiff resistance, led by a furious tobacco industry.
It seems clear by now that these we-know-best compulsions of the American Cancer Society and people like the Secretary of HEW have driven them somewhere over the edge of reality. Certainly there are examples of that in the report given to us this morning.
It would be totally unrealistic to expect all of the Commission's recommendations to become law, but they are seen as a major boost to the American Cancer Society's 5-year goal to reduce adult smoking by 25% and youth smoking by 50% in the United States.
DC Comics, the people who, when I was a kid, took my allowance 10 cents at a time for their latest episodes of Superman, Batman, Green Arrow, and others to nurse me through adolescence, have come up with what they term not your ordinary comic book.
At $2.50 a copy, the price tells you that much. The title tells you the rest. It's Muhammad Ali versus Superman to save the world, naturally.
I like it because it shows you how things are changing in this country when you put a black man up with Superman. That shows you how things are really changing, how for the better. The white superiority thing is kind of getting out of the way. People are getting equal chances. And Superman has always been the big brainwashing hero. Superman Tarzan, the blacker people. And now you can look at that, it's a lot different. I'm just happy to be part of this change in history.
Now, oddly enough, that was about all that Ali had to say. He was absolutely mum on his coming fight with Leon Spinks, and since we all know the man, we know that this is the most unusual thing he's ever done before any of his fights. 5 weeks ago, a New York State Supreme Court said the Boxing Commission had no right to outlaw women boxers. Not that women are beating down their doors to get licensed anyway. But there is Cat Davis, whose left jab is as pretty as her face, and after the court decision, she applied for a license to fight, but it is still illegal for Cat to fight in New York while the Boxing Commission appeals.
Well, if they want to arrest me, it's going to make them look pretty bad. That sort of thing went out with suffrage movement, getting arrested because you're a woman. So I really think they're more bluff than anything.
Of course, what you wonder through all of this is why the commission is tramping through courts, wasting their time and our money on a case that they can't win. They could be doing a lot better things for their already low credibility.